So an occultation is when one object passes in front of another object. So we're talking about the moon, so I'm going to talk a little bit about lunar occultation. So the moon, it passes in front of many other objects because there's lots of stuff up there. It passes through anything along the ecliptic, okay, plus or minus 5 degrees. So it covers a lot of stars. It passes through a few star clusters, which is kind of neat. It also passes in front of planets, because of course the planets are all in the ecliptic as well. When it passes in front of stars, it's kind of neat, because a star is really, it's so far away, for all intents and purposes, it's a mathematical point when we see it. So even through a telescope with binoculars, when a star passes behind the moon, it just winks out, just disappears. And then when it reappears on the other side, it just comes back. It's really quite neat. Especially when the moon is kind of a thin crescent, so it's mostly dark. If it's an evening moon just after sunset, it's quite nice because then it's the dark side of the moon, the leading side of the moon, that just covers these things up. Sometimes the moon passes in front of a double star, okay? In which case, it will, if it's a close double, so you can't really kind of see that it's two stars, but sometimes it will wink out twice. It will go half gone, gone. And that's really kind of neat to watch. The other thing is something called a grazing occultation. And a grazing occultation is when the star that you see just kind of skims along the top surface or the bottom surface of the moon as it passes across the field of view. And when it does that, there are mountains on the moon. And so you can see sometimes, if you're right along that perfect path, the star winking on and off as it's going behind the hills and mountains on the surface of the moon. Which is really freaky to watch. Okay, star clusters. The Pleiades, which is this lovely open star cluster in Taurus. And there were a couple times recently when the moon just passed in front of the Pleiades and covered over some of the stars. It's really quite nice to see. Just a pair of binoculars, even cheapo binoculars that you probably got gathering dust in your basement, which we covered in Guy's talk probably. Dust off the lenses, get them out, and just watch. A nice wide field of view, and watch the moon just kind of drifting through the star clusters. Quite nice. And the other thing is planets. There was an occultation of Venus in February. This is one going back to 2004, so this is only a year and a half after joining the RASC. To put things in perspective, there's the moon. I have the moon, there's the moon. Okay, so here's the moon, a nice little crescent moon. It's approaching the sun. Okay, there's the sun. So the moon is actually going ahead of the sun across the sky. This is a waning crescent. Okay, so it's an old moon, it's approaching new moon. Here is that crescent moon. Okay, and this little dot right here, that's Jupiter.
Oh, nice.
Okay, this is a little 60mm refractor, handheld digital camera through the lens. Okay, I tried all kinds of fiddly things to get things focused and attached and everything. It worked. Camera through the lens, click, and this is what I got. On the screen itself, you can actually kind of see a couple of little craters and things too, which is kind of neat on the moon. Even though it's just a small aging crescent. But I thought this was kind of a cool shot.
Yeah.